Hi everyone, my name is Oha Cade, and this is going to be a review of Nightwish's new album, Human Nature. Real quick, I just want to say that I'm the composer of a symphonic metal opera called Falcata. Please check us out. The album has 8 lead singers and a full metal band and live strings. And we're on Spotify and YouTube, and I'll leave all the links where you can check us out down below. Thanks. So Human Nature. I wanted to get this review out earlier, but I wanted to give myself a bit more time to listen to it. This is an album that you really need to give some time to. With that said, I'll give my overall thoughts, which is that I'm really happy with the album. The number one takeaway that I had upon first listen was that the old magic is still there. Nightwish have been my favorite band ever since I heard the Wishmaster album, somewhere around 15 years ago, and on first listen I was certainly moved to tears. I was transported, my imagination was titillated, and just a great experience. And yeah, I'm really thrilled with it. I do think that there are some flaws in some parts that I don't enjoy as much, which I'll go into, but I'll take it track by track and let's get into it. The first track, Music, when I was listening to it, I felt like my thought was, I really wanted Nightwish to release a song like this in a while, where the sequence is very progressive and it builds up to lots of different parts. That's something that's different about this album, is that it has a very progressive, even proggy feel that I really haven't heard from them before, especially in some of the more guitar focused songs. But Music opens up with the most epic sounding choir ever. It gets you super hyped. That melody is beautiful, that choir is singing. The verse melody that Flora is singing is quite beautiful. I really like the chorus of this song. Just the way that this song progresses in general is super nice. I especially love the heavy riff towards the middle end, where Flora is using her operatic voice in a sort of soft and creepy way. I think that's super cool, and just the way it ends and all of the synth sounds in this song are very tastefully designed. It's perfect, I absolutely love it. Definitely one of the strongest songs on the album. Noise, I've already discussed this. I think Noise is a very solid single, and I think hearing it on the album, it makes a lot more sense than just hearing it by itself. Like, within context, it sounds a lot better because it's a slightly heavier song than Music, so that contrast is there. Overall, this is a solid song. I don't think it's an extremely strong song in comparison to some of the other ones on the album, but it's decent. I'd say it's a little too standard, if I'm honest. It is lacking a little bit of something to elevate it into like a classic. Then we have Shoemaker, and this is definitely in the top 2 songs of the album, as most people, I'd say, will agree. The playfulness with the rhythm and the time signatures in the verses and the melody makes for a really unique sound. The transition into the chorus with Troy is really cool. Overall, the song, structure-wise, is very creative, and the final section with the spoken word by Joanna and the classical soprano singing by Flora, that's absolutely gorgeous. Move Me to Tears on first listen still moves me to tears when I listen to it. It's probably the most beautiful moment on their albums that I've heard since maybe Home on The Poet and the Pendulum. It really shows that this band is still willing to play with their song structures in a way that is very impactful and unexpected. One thing that I will say is that Flora's delivery of the verses is not my favorite style of singing from her. It's a very spoken, speech level style of singing, and well, I think that can be appropriate sometimes. I think it is a little bit overused on this album. Like when she sings the lyric, "Yours is the whole star map of heavens," on the word whole, she transitions into her full voice, and it's very powerful and emotional, and it hits you right there. So I would like to have heard her sing the verses all in that fuller voice rather than the softer spoken voice. But then I guess you could argue that if she had done that, it would have made that particular moment less impactful. I don't know, it's just a personal preference to me. I think that she has such a strong, emotive, powerful, full voice that it's a shame to not use it a little more often. And I'm not necessarily talking about range, I'm more talking about the clarity in her tone as opposed to a breathier style, which I'm not a huge fan of, but I can understand why they use it sometimes. Next is Harvest. And Harvest, it's a nice song, but I do think it is by quite a margin the weakest song on the album. It depends what you're into, I guess. My issue with it is I'm not crazy about Troy's vocals, and I think he's a good singer for harmonies and stuff. I just don't think he has the strongest lead voice to carry a whole song by himself. I think he has a sweet voice, but I don't think it quite has the grit that is needed to carry a song like that. Even though it's quite a traditional and folky song, I do think those kinds of songs, especially with a male vocal, they do actually need some sort of grit or even a little bit of aggression in the voice to really communicate the lyrics with conviction. The rhythmic instrumental part is cool, with where he showcases his pipes, but it just felt like a little bit of deja vu since we already got something like that on Endless Forms Most Beautiful with My Walden and Imaginarium with I Want My Tears Back. I understand that Nightwish want to showcase the pipes in a song. I just think that it can be integrated into their music in a more organic way rather than saying this is the folky song and this is the metal song. And to be fair, they definitely did that on this album. Everything is more organic, and I do think the pipes are integrated in a more organic way, but this particular song I just think was a somewhat of a misstep. The chorus is a little bit saccharine, not my favorite. It could grow on me, but it's not my favorite. Next is Pan. This is probably my favorite song on the album. Not to be such a basic fanboy of the power metal, but it's a really good song, so what can I do, you know? The intro is excellent. Flora's vocals are outstanding. Her style of singing in the song is super cool. I love how the verse is, the melody in the verse, the first verse, is very complex. It's kind of the only time that happens in the song. It really shows how they are staying progressive and wanting to make each part of each song a new moment. So I like how they didn't repeat a certain part of the initial verse too much. I love the chorus, definitely reminiscent of their song Wishmaster in that kind of punchy style. Another thing that I like about this song, and that you can hear in songs like Shoemaker and later on in Procession, is Two of Us is including more little keyboardy bits, like little piano parts and little like harpsichord parts that I have missed in their songs. Those parts used to be included a little more on their earlier albums, but he's really brought them back full, and you can hear it in this song, for example, at the very beginning in the intro, right before the boom, 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 boom. The guitar work in this song is excellent. They're really having a lot of fun with this one. The choir part is very catchy. I love that Floor uses her deeper resonance for this part. I really love that little break just before the final chorus. Really comes to a halt, but you hear the bangs and the crashes and it brings you right back in. Super epic, super Nightwish. And the final breakdown at the end, I mean, what more could you ask for? So, I know it might be the most obvious song to name as the best song on the album, but I do think it is the best song on the album. I think well, I guess you could argue that Shoemaker might be better, but I think this song has got it. The next song is How's the Heart. This is a really cute, beautiful song. It reminds me a lot of For the Heart I Once Had from Dark Passion Play, but it still has its own identity. The chorus is simple but beautifully sung by Floor, melodic. It's a simple song, but it has a lot of cool individual parts. Like there's a part where Floor goes up into her higher operatic range, but she doesn't overdo it. It's a very delicate delivery from her higher range. And then I really love that they included a little bit of a heavier riff in the bridge towards the end to offset some of the sweetness. This song lyrically, I've learned, means a lot personally to Floor. Yeah, at the end, I love how she's just like belting out the chorus, and just a really good, solid song. Wouldn't say it's my favorite on the album, just because those kinds of songs for me personally are not what I usually go for. Even For the Heart I Once Had was not my favorite song on Dark Passion Play. But I do understand that every Nightwish album needs a song like this, and I'm into it. It's a similar level of intensity to Harvest, but despite the fact that this song is very sweet, it's not quite as, dare I say, corny sounding as Harvest. I'm sorry to say that, but that's just genuinely how I'm trying to describe it. I feel like this song, How's the Heart, you can really feel the sincerity in it. The next song is Procession, and this is an interesting one. It's the vocal melody is it is repetitive, but in an intentional way. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the lyrics sort of speak to our history, and I think there's a little nod to our successors in the future. They're discussing, the ancient humans, and so it's kind of like a huge timeline from the past into the distant future. So I think the lyrics are cool. I definitely think that Floor's delivery on the song is beautiful. I am just not sure if overall it has the impact that perhaps it could have had if there was some kind of larger climax to it. Because I think up until maybe 3/4 of the way through, I'm definitely into it and I'm like on the journey, but then it sort of transitions into a sort of mid-tempo rock vibe, which reminds me of sort of a Sonata Arctica style that they used on albums like The Days of Grays, where it is melodic and they're going for a sort of meditative, just straightforward rock vibe. And that's how this song concludes, and I'm not crazy about that. I think maybe Two of Us didn't want to go too over the top with the ending, but in my opinion, he should have just gone for it. Full bombast, I would have been into it, but I guess they just wanted to keep it low-key, which is fair enough. But for me, I could have done with that final punch. Next is Tribal. This is another song that I'm still not crazy about. It's the heaviest song on the album, and the best parts are the heavy parts, like the tribal grunting and that really sick riff. It's just this really dirty riff, probably the dirtiest riff that they've ever done, which I love. However, I don't know, the vocal melody in the verses is a little bland. I'm totally behind the idea of the song and what they were going for, but and something I do like about it is that it reminded me a little bit of Tutankhamun from their first album, Angels Fall First. So I guess Tumas was bringing back a little bit of his youthful, playful vibe to the song, and I like that. Maybe it's just something about it feels maybe a bit rushed, despite the fact that it's been 5 years, I don't know, since Endless Forms was beautiful. I like how Floor holds a really long note at the end. So there are certain little individual parts of the song that I'm super into. I guess just overall as a whole piece, it doesn't quite come together for me, unfortunately. Endlessness is a very strong finish to the album. Surprisingly, Marco isn't singing that much on this album. I thought he would sing more because on Endless Forms Most Beautiful, he really only sang a couple of parts. He sang on Weak Fantasy and a lead part on The Greatest Show on Earth, and then harmonies for the rest of the album, but I'm glad that he takes up most of this song. This song it has a little bit of a funeral doom thing going on, a little bit like Raskan from Imaginarium, but this song has a more of a vast, spacious feeling. The chorus is very drawn out. You can really feel yourself being like taken along in waves. All of the riffs are cool, and my favorite part of the song is when it breaks into a really, really nice groove where the Floor and the choir, they just have these like droning vocals, and I mean that in a good way. This sort of fantasy space drone. Endlessness. It's just so cool, and there's this like groove going over it, and I just love parts like that. So creative, so groovy, just really pulls you in, and I love it. At the end of the song, Marco comes back in with the melody from the guitar riff at the beginning, and the album ends super strong there, at least the first part, Human. So again, my overall thoughts on the first part of the CD is that I absolutely love it. I'm still listening to it. I wish I could describe more how much I love this album already. I think it's actually an improvement over Endless Form's Most Beautiful. Not to compare them, but if I were to compare them, I do prefer this album because you really feel that old magic more. You feel like that this album has a unique heart to it. Endless Form's Most Beautiful does too, but I think in that album, every song was so distinct that there didn't seem to be a heart in some of the songs because it was so scientific. It was more like a documentary and a learning experience, certainly full of awe, but there was a definitely heart that I could feel in this album, and that meant a lot. It really helped to stir up that old magic in me. So now we move on to the second disc, All the Works of Nature Which Adorn the World. So I'm not really going to go through each part individually. I will admit that I'm not very familiar with each individual part. I've only heard this second disc about 3 times, so I'm going to discuss it in a broader sense. I commend Tuomas for staying true to his artistry, and just straight up, he's just saying, listen, this is what's in me, I gotta get this out. Just a whole album of just orchestra and choir, and a little bit of vocals, that's it. I don't care what you think, this is what's in me, it's coming out, deal with it. Okay, I respect that. It really shows to me that Nightwish is still a band that is true to themselves, and Tuomas as a composer is still true to himself. He's not selling out, he's not trying to give us what we want. He's saying, listen, I'm into movie scores, and I'm into nature, I'm into just serenity. I know we're a metal band, but suck it. I mean, it's good. It's beautiful for what it is. I mean, if you ask me, if you have a whole orchestra and choir to work with, I do think that you could do more with it. Each song is very, very slow, and just because the theme is nature and just because it's only an orchestra, that doesn't mean that every song has to be so slow and chordy. You can really liven it up a bit. You can create chaos if you want, you know, isn't there chaos in nature? I mean, there is a little bit of that on some of the songs, but overall, it can be a bit of a slog, and I'm surprised actually that he felt a need to make this second CD because he already, you know, composed The Life and Times of Scrooge McDuck, which I loved, and you can definitely get vibes of The Life and Times of Scrooge McDuck from this second disc. But I think my main problem with this second disc is that the melodies are a little nondescript. There are some songs that have very distinct melodies, such as The Blue and Ad Astra, of course. But otherwise, there's just a lot of just chords, just meditation, ambience. It's very scory, and I would have liked some more melody, something that I don't want catchiness necessarily, but just a really nice melody. So in terms of communicating the atmosphere of nature and the beauty of nature and the tranquility and everything, I think it's successful. I just feel like since you have so much to work with, you can do more. But he's sticking to his guns, and this is his creation, so I respect that. And I think perhaps in time we will all be eating our words about this second disc, and I'm saying all of us because I know that this second disc is a bit controversial. Not everyone is super into it, but that's the point of being an artist. You know, sometimes you have to do things that are just for yourself. You know, as a composer myself, I understand that if you don't enjoy the song that you're writing, no one else is going to enjoy it. So while I'm complaining about wanting more distinct melodies and more chaos and stuff, if he makes an attempt to put chaos and more melody or whatever into these songs and he doesn't like it, there's no point in putting it out, because chances are we wouldn't like it either. The only way that we're going to enjoy anything is if he enjoys it, and I have no doubt in my mind that he absolutely loves Human Nature as an album, so that's really all I care about. I think my 2 favorite parts of this second disc are The first part Vista and the last part Ad Astra. Both feature Floor singing, and the vocal melodies are beautiful. The spoken word section in Ad Astra is very profound. It's by Carl Sagan, and the way it builds up that melody that finishes off this second disc is just stunning, and I do wish there was a little more of that flowing throughout the second disc. But you know, overall, I'm very pleased with this album. Like I said, I do have some misgivings about it, but overall I'm absolutely thrilled that Nightwish have delivered another awesome work that is true to them. And I'll certainly be listening to this album constantly. I already am. There's so much to discover, and I hear something different every time I listen to it. So thanks for listening. That was my review of Human Nature by Nightwish. Again, please check out my project Volcata. I'll leave links down below, and I would love to hear what you think. You can follow me on Instagram too, and Facebook. So please check us out. I hope you're all staying safe in this terrible lockdown, and staying entertained, staying creative, or just relaxing. If you're working from home, I hope that you're busy. I'm always looking for, new ideas to stay busy. So if you would like me to review an album or a song, let me know. That's about it. So take care, and I'll talk to you soon. Thanks.